My name is Yusuf. I have a cheerful wife, a kind-hearted daughter, and a curious and honest son, and 2 cute cats, and we live happily together. But I have only one regret in my life so far. Actually, my current wife and I are remarried. My first marriage was when I was 25 years old. She was my classmate from elementary school. We met again at a reunion after college graduation and started dating. We dated for 3 years and got married. My ex-wife, Yuna, was a bit insecure about herself and always tried to fit in with everyone around her. However, because of this, she was kind to everyone, and that's what I fell in love with. 1 year after our marriage, our daughter, Helen, was born. Correcting Yuna, who'd always been timid and not good at socializing with others. I asked her to become a full-time housewife. I felt I had to protect Yuna and my daughter Helen, so I worked hard at my job, even working beyond midnight until the sun came up every day. I only had 1 day off per week, but on my days off, I did as much housework as I could, and I never missed a chance to communicate with my daughter Helen. Yuna always said to me, "Thank you for your hard work every day," and stayed up late at night. However, when Helen turned 4 years old, it happened. I finished work earlier than I expected, so I was walking around town to buy a cake or something to surprise her with. Then I saw Yuna standing alone in front of a store across the street. I thought it might be someone who looked like her, but it was definitely Yuna. She was wearing a beautiful dress and was wearing a lot of makeup. I had not seen Yuna so dressed up in a long time. Helen usually goes to kindergarten, but it was already past 5:30 in the evening. Normally, she would be with Helen at this time of the day, but I couldn't see her. I wondered what was wrong. As I was watching her, a man I didn't know came up and talked to Yuna. Then Yuna smiled happily and started to walk away holding his arm. It was the moment I witnessed the scene of an affair just like in the movie. I didn't want to believe it, but after seeing it with my own eyes, there was no way I could not doubt it. That day, Yuna came home around 8 p.m. with Helen. I didn't question her right away because Helen was still there. After putting Helen to bed, I told her what I had seen today. Yuna was so surprised that she immediately started crying. "Why are you crying?" "I'm the one who wants to cry." I got too emotional and I said that. "I'm sorry." Yuna apologized again and again. Then she started to explain what was going on. She said that Helen was being watched by an extended daycare provider at her kindergarten. She met the man she was with today online and started seeing him 6 months ago. At first, she only asked him for advice about her problems, but he was so kind to her that she became lenient with him. What problems? If it's about money, I'm working so hard that we can live without any inconvenience, right? What do you have to worry about when you just stay at home? That was the worst thing I said to her. I knew that, but I was so sad that my wife, whom I had trusted, had betrayed me. Yuna never said anything back to me, and all she did was kept apologizing. I thought if we could repair our relationship since we had a daughter. But I could not forgive Yuna and divorce her. Yuna cried and apologized to me, but I was awarded custody of my daughter in court. The only mercy I have is that I didn't ask for child support or alimony from Yuna, who had no financial resources. Hysteria, I wanted to reset myself, so I took the opportunity when the company I worked for opened a new branch office. I took Helen with me and moved to a place I had no connection to. I didn't give Yuna my address, changed my cell phone, and didn't give her my phone number. We completely lost touch with each other. I feel a little guilty that I might have done something bad to Helen because she can't get in touch with her real mother, but I was determined to give her all my love and affection to replace that. Dad, I made dinner today, but when Helen was in 3rd grade, I came home from work to find spaghetti. I had never taught her to cook before. She said she learned it in cooking class and asked her teacher for some tips and made it for me. I was both happy and surprised. Thank you very much, but are you hurt? Do you know how to use a fire and a knife? I was worried about my daughter, who was not even 10 years old. Don't worry. I studied hard. Helen has grown up to be a good, honest, and kind-hearted girl. I'm still a workaholic and come home late around 8 p.m. every day. Despite that, Helen never complains and always greets me cheerfully. I try to participate in school events as much as possible and ask her about what happened at school every day. I've prioritized communicating with her as much as possible while raising her. We enjoyed our life together as a family. Then, when Helen was in 4th grade, I decided to remarry. The other woman was a coworker 2 years younger than me. She has a 7-year-old son, Glenn, and we both had kids, and it was a second marriage. At first, I was a little worried that it would not work out. However, we knew that both of us had past scars and hard feelings. We were able to build a comfortable relationship with each other. Helen, as a big sister, looked after Lance so well. Since they are not so far apart in age, they sometimes fight with each other. But Helen, who's been alone until now, seemed very happy to have a younger brother. Then, when Helen was in 6th grade and Lan was in 4th grade, Helen came out of Lan's room, which was unusual. What were you talking with Lan about? I asked her. Helen looked somewhat awkward, but then opened her mouth as if she had made up her mind. Lan told me that he was going to meet his father from before tomorrow. I was not surprised. When I remarried, my wife told me that she wanted Lan to keep seeing his real father. And she told me in advance this time too. Helen, you don't have to look like that. There's nothing wrong at all with meeting your real father, I reassured her. Then Helen seemed a little relieved. Yeah, she said. Then she continued, I wonder how my real mother is doing now, she said. I was surprised. She had never mentioned Yuna since the divorce. I thought she was just a little girl and had forgotten about it. And sure, maybe it was me who thought it would be nice if she did. But sure, no matter what the circumstances were for the adults, no matter how much I love my current family, there was only one mother in the world who had given birth to Helen. I felt bad for Helen. You're right. All right. I'm sorry I didn't notice. I know it's on your mind. Helen became silent. But I don't know how Mom is doing right now either. There's no way to contact her. Seeing Helen calmly listening to me, I felt that she has grown up. But if someday when you become more mature and you want to meet your real mother, I won't say no to that. You can do whatever you want to do. If I go ask some old classmates, I might be able to get Yuna's contact information. But I'm a bit stubborn to do so. Okay, thanks, Helen said with a smile and seemed to understand. But I love my mom right now. Helen adds, perhaps thinking I'm worried about her. I know you even talk about secrets you can't tell Dad with her, don't you? My wife and Helen have been chatting over a cup of tea after dinner recently. It's a girls' night out, so you can't join? A tad, she would say. It's a little sad, but it makes me very happy that they are getting along so well. A few months later, I received a call on my cell phone from an unknown number. It was a weekday, but it was my day off. The kids were at school and my wife was at work. I wondered who it was and picked up the phone to find a surprising voice on the other end of the line. Halimpa Yusuf, long time no see. This is Yuna's mother. I haven't had any contact with Yuna or her family since the divorce. Oh, it's been a while. It seems that Yuna got your number from a classmate. I really needed to tell you something today, so I had to call you. I'm sorry for calling so suddenly, Yuna's mother said in a somewhat weak voice. We had seen each other so many times when we were in elementary school. I somehow feel very awkward and apologetic in this situation. Yes, what's wrong? Actually, Yuna passed away last month. Yuna's mother's voice was trembling as if she was crying, and then I was also struck blank by this unexpected confession. And then she told me that she wanted to meet me and talk about the details in person, and that she knew I had a new family. She asked me to come to her house just once, as she did not intend to disturb me. And I said, I will think about it for a little bit and get back to you, and hung up the phone. I hadn't seen Yuna for almost 10 years, and her presence in my daily life had been non-existent. I thought she was still alive and well somewhere. She was still in her 30s. I had no idea that she would pass away so soon. I thought about refusing to go to see her since it was none of my business now. I wondered why she had passed away, and how she had lived since then, and how does she feel about Helen. And I wanted to know all these things, and to be honest, I was not sure what to do. I talked to my wife about it. Both see her for Helen's sake. So I decided to go to Yuna's parents' house the next weekend myself. I would tell Helen later, so I didn't tell her that time. Yuna's parents' house is less than 5 minutes away from my parents' house. I felt a little nostalgic because it was a street I used to take when I first started working. When I rang the doorbell, Yuna's mother answered right away. She looked exhausted and her face was gaunt, though I guess she was getting older. She invited me into the house and entered the living room and asked me to sit on the sofa. Then, on a shelf right in front of me, there was a large portrait of Yuna. It is a picture with a familiar smiling face. Those were the best times. She looked so happy and smiling. Yuna's mother said as she noticed me looking at the picture. I cut out the picture of you, Helen, me smiling together, and used it. I see, that's why it looks so familiar. I thought about throwing away the pictures I took with Yuna when I got divorced, but I decided to keep them for Helen. And I have them at my parents' house. But seeing these were the best times. What kind of life has Yuna lived since then? I was thinking about that. Yuna's mother put a mug of coffee in front of me and began to speak quietly. The man Yuna was dating after betraying you, actually, he was a marriage scammer. What? I was quite surprised. After she divorced you, the guy asked her to marry him as if he had been waiting for her. Yuna was mentally in a bad place, so she accepted the proposal with all her heart. But after they got engaged, he said he needed money for his mother's illness. That much it wasn't much, but I cooperated and gave him the money I had. But he ran away with it. I knew Yuna's character very well. She was a good-natured person who couldn't say no. Why did she fall for such a thing? My heart ached. She'd always been a weak-minded girl, so she became clinically depressed. After that, she lived at home all the time, but never once did she forget about Helen. I never thought Helen's name would come up here. Every year on Helen's birthday, even though she knew she couldn't be there, even though she knew she couldn't reach her, she would buy a cake and celebrate, and she hoped that one day she could be of help to Helen. She'd been working a home job and saved the money under Helen's name. She handed me her bank book and personal seal. I didn't know Yuna's feelings towards Helen, and she wanted to congratulate Helen because she was going to be a junior high school student this year. So she went around asking her classmates for your contact information. She even went to visit your parents' house once, but they refused, saying they were sorry because you had asked them not to tell her. I don't blame Yuna for that. I certainly didn't want my new life to be disturbed, so I asked my parents to do so. Then she was finally able to get your contact information, but she didn't know if it was okay for her to contact you, so she became depressed again. Since she had heard from her classmate that you had remarried, she also had to get back up, wondering how she was going to live now. Yuna's mother told me all the worries that were filled in Yuna's mind. That the cause of her death was an accidental fall down the stairs at a park. And from the way she fell, it seemed she didn't fall down purposefully. Yuna's mother told me that she probably panicked and walked without looking ahead. And finally, the reason I asked you to come today is because I wanted to give you this. She handed me dozens of sheets of paper that looked like they were cut out of a notebook. Yuna always kept a diary. That's when I was sorting through her belongings. I found some of them addressed to you and Helen, so I wanted her to read them. I'm not asking you to do anything, but I just want you to know how she feels, please. Yuna's mother bowed her head. Okay, I will read it. Please raise your hand. Then I looked through the dozens of papers written in Yuna's handwriting that I have missed so much. Helen, it's your 5th birthday, isn't it? Happy birthday. Cullen? I'm sorry, I couldn't celebrate it with you this year. I'm sure you've become a wonderful lady. The first one was written for Helen, 1 year after the divorce. Then came the ones for her 6th, 7th birthday. Every year on Helen's birthday, there was a message. Not in an envelope, not written on a letterhead, just written in the diary. A letter that was never delivered. But it is painfully clear, and each sentence is filled with love for Helen. Dear Helen, you turned 13 years old today. How is junior high school going? Have you joined any club activities? Helen, you love to play outside, so maybe you enjoyed an athletic club. But you also imitated your mom's sewing, so maybe you joined home economics club. I bet you look so cute in your school uniform. I hope you will let Mom see it next year. Yuna is right. Helen is in the track and field club, and her favorite subject is home economics. And on the report card she received before summer vacation, she got an A in that class. Even though she hasn't seen Helen for almost 10 years, Yuna knows her very well. She is the only mother. Most of the papers were messages to Helen, but there was one piece of paper that was not. Yosef. I was surprised to see my name, which I had not seen before. But Yosef, I'm so sorry. If I hadn't done what I did, I wonder if we would still be laughing together now. I wonder if Helen and the three of us would be living happily together. It's too late to regret, but if I could turn back time, I would endure anything. I just want to go back to those days. What a fool I was. I knew that you were working so hard for me, and Helen, my thoughts of being sad because we couldn't talk more, or that I wish you would compliment me more. I was such a selfish person thinking those things. I miss you and Helen, but I don't have the right to go see you or even say that I want to see you. I'm sorry. I still love you. It's true. Yuna's words were written in such trembling letters, and before I knew it, I was shedding tears too. I had never thought about why Yuna had an affair. I packed her and Helen that even when Yuna was perfectly taking care of the house and raising our daughter well, I was unable to express my gratitude, let alone feel grateful towards Yuna. When I came home, I just watched Helen sleep, took a bath, and went to bed. It was not uncommon for me to go to bed without eating dinner that Yuna made for me. So I rarely had time to talk with Yuna during that time. And yet, at that time, I said, "What do you have to worry about?" Such horrible things. I still don't think that having an affair itself is right. If I had thought about it more, it might not have ended up like this. Maybe Yuna would not have had such a hard time and would not have died at such a young age. I finally realized my immaturity now. Even if I realize it now, Yuna is gone. I should have let Yuna meet Helen while she was still alive, for Helen's sake and for Yuna's sake. And at the end of that letter, "I wish Helen and Yusuf are very happy now," was written. I'm happy now, surrounded by my new family. I spend every day with a smile on my face. Helen is also always smiling happily, so I can't think of anything I want to change in my life. But if I could, I would have wanted Yuna to be happy somewhere. Yuna's mother bowed deeply at the end. "Thank you for coming." I bowed and left Yuna's parents' house. Later, after talking to my wife, I told Helen everything and gave her the messages Yuna had written for her. Helen happily read those messages and put them in her desk drawer. Then I asked Yuna's mother for the location and went to visit her grave with Helen. Helen put her hands firmly together and did not cry. And facing the tombstone, she said, "Mom, thank you for giving birth to me." Her face was very calm and looked a little like Yuna's. Now I live with a very kind and wonderful mother, and I am living happily. So please sleep peacefully. It's going to be all right. She spoke to me with a smile, as I was about to cry, but I held back, knowing Helen's thoughts. I prayed that Yuna would be happy in heaven. That's all I can do now, to pray and to make Helen happy. Hello, my name is John. I love cat.